You're listening to the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast, episode number 232.
Welcome to the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast. Business advice so easy, you'll feel like you're cheating. And now your host, Amy Porterfield.
Hi there. Welcome back to another episode of the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast. I'm your host, Amy Porterfield, and I am so very thrilled that you've tuned in here today. Now, today we're talking all about you making money and saving money and spending money and everything in between. But before we get there, first, a listener review spotlight. This one is from one of my top students, Anna DiGilio. So Anna wrote, I absolutely loved today's episode with Amy and Chloe. It was so good. I just hired my integrator and she is amazing. But hearing this podcast helped me to better understand the integrator role. Anna, I'm so glad that you enjoyed this episode, and I'm over the moon excited that you hired an integrator. That is a game changer. That is leveling up your business big time. So congratulations, and thanks for giving us a shout out. If you all are interested, Anna's talking about episode 224, so just amyporterfield.com/224. And it was the episode where I interviewed Chloe, who is my integrator, also known as a project manager. And Chloe got to talk about what she does and the different roles she plays in the team and how she works with me. So it was definitely a popular episode, and I'm so glad you loved it, Anna. Now, speaking of Anna, I've got to give you guys one more link to check out. If you love a good case study and you want to hear about success stories from people other than my own business, and if you want to hear about people creating courses outside of the making money world, I help people make money in their businesses. Well, I've got students that are doing way different things than I'm doing as they create courses. Anna DiGilio is one of my top students. She creates courses for teachers that are actually in the classroom. So it's really cool what she does. She was a teacher for 23 years, knew nothing about online marketing, and then decided, you know what? I'm going to change this up. You've got to hear her story. It is incredibly inspiring. It's the kind of story that you think, well, she can do it, so can I. And those are my favorite stories. So go to amyporterfield.com/Anna if you want to watch a Facebook Live where I interviewed Anna all about her successes. So thanks again, Anna, for this shout out. And if you leave me a review, you might just be my next student spotlight. So I'd love to hear from all of you, and I'd love to read everything that you write. So keep them coming. Okay, so switching gears, let me ask you a question. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being completely lost and 10 being super comfortable, how would you rate your understanding and grasp of the financial status of your business? So how would you rate your understanding of where you are in your business with your finances, 1 being totally lost, 10 being super comfortable? Just say it out loud. No one's looking, no one's listening. What would you rate it? Okay, so I wish I could hear all those numbers. So I'm super curious about how comfortable you feel about your finances. Another question I would love to know is, do you have a budget, or are you more of a wing it type of girl or type of guy? Are you tracking expenses carefully, or are you a bit surprised each month when you read through all of the miscellaneous business expenses on your credit card statement? That has happened to me many times, especially in my early years. Like, what are all these expenses? Am I really using all this software? Usually the answer is no. So maybe you're really good at making money, but you haven't actually turned a profit yet. That's very normal as well. Believe it or not, most entrepreneurs never really show a consistent profit in their business. Devastating, right? The reason for this is because any extra money they have coming in ends up going back into the business. Can you relate? Reinvesting back in your business or using extra money on hand to buy the latest and greatest software or tool or online training program sounds like a reasonable and healthy plan, right? I believed this until I read the book Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. And Mike lays out a simple cash flow system that shows you how to take profit first and spend only what remains on expenses. Applying these principles to your business could be a game changer. So I run my business based on the principles of the book Profit First. I do make some tweaks and changes because Profit First is really geared toward a brick and mortar. So I had to change things up a bit, but I really like so many of the strategies and philosophies in that book. Now, my guest today is Amber Duggar. And Amber is a financial expert who helps entrepreneurs improve their relationship with money. She's also a mastery level profit first professional and is going to break down a super simple way for you to implement the profit first cash flow system in your business. Later on in the interview, you're going to hear her talk about something called YNAB. And it's basically a system to help you track your expenses and cash flow and everything in between through an online application. So we're going to get to that later, but when you hear her say YNAB, I don't want you to be totally confused. It's a system that's going to help you implement the profit first strategies. So we'll get there in just a moment. Before we do, I wanted to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Gravy, which is so appropriate for what we're talking about today. So if you have a subscription model business or offer payment plans like I do for my online courses, you've got to listen up. One of my biggest frustrations was lost money due to failed payment plans from people buying my courses. In fact, it used to keep me up at night. I worried about it a lot. I would think, okay, I work so hard to attract new customers and launch my programs. And then what happens if a bunch of people don't finish their payment plans? I'm screwed. So a little while ago, I decided to use a company called Gravy. And these days, I never worry about failed payment plans. I mean, never. Gravy sets up a system inside of your business where they contact your customers within hours of their failed payments, and they capture updated billing information and they save the customer. So that means my team and I, when we work really hard to get a customer, we know that that customer is going to be with us for a very long time. Even if they have a failed payment, we get them back into the system. Now, one other fear I thought was, am I really going to let an outside company come into my business and communicate with my students? Especially because the topic of failed payments is a very sensitive one. But I took the leap, and now Gravy feels like an extension of my team. When they reach out to people, they communicate like they are part of Team Porterfield. And this has been amazing to see. So on average, our failed payment recovery rate increased from 33% when we were trying to do it internally as a team to over 80%. Sometimes we hit 90% total recovered failed payments. That's a lot of saved money, right? So if your revenue is currently at $250,000 or more a year, and you know you're losing money due to failed payments each month, I want to encourage you to check out Gravy. The cool thing is that Gravy is waiving its setup fee for my listeners. So if you go to amyporterfield.com/gravy, you can get all the details. Okay, so I won't make you wait any longer. Let's go ahead and dive into our chat with Amber all about profit first and really understanding how to manage your finances so you can build a business you love and build a life you love while you're at it. Okay, here we go. Hey there, Amber. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much, Amy. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, it's going to be a great show. We have a lot to cover. And I'm so glad you're here with us because you're going to teach something that is very important to every single person listening to this podcast, how to make our business profitable immediately. But before we get into all that good stuff, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you earn a living.
All right. Well, I am so excited to talk about this topic. I could talk about this all day because no matter how big your business is, whether you're just starting out or you're making seven figures, the system that you put in place to become profitable immediately is a game changer. And I am on a mission to help businesses set up the system sooner rather than later so that they can truly be at a place of full creative expansion and focusing on their impact and not thinking about whether or not they have enough money for the next month. And so that's my mission. That's really what I do. And I utilize Profit First and YNAB. And with that, I found that because setting intention to your money is really, truly what makes this a game changer, because you're no longer just thinking about a random revenue goal, but you're actually thinking about, what is it that I actually want my business to provide? What is it that I truly want to be able to do with the resources that come in? And I came across that from being a health coach. I started out at IIN, went to health coach school, and then I went to Bali immediately after leaving corporate. And I knew that I couldn't be in the same mainstream corporate. Like when I saw the badges, I would get PTSD. And I was like, oh, I need to get out of the mainstream. So I went to Bali completely on a whim, listening to another podcast about someone who had done something similar. And while I was seeing all my clients in Bali, so many people came to me and were asking, what is this cash flow system you have? How is this working? And so I was asked to do a lot of retreats and skill shares. And it was there that I recognized that there was this void in how we actually handle cash, not bookkeeping, not accounting, but what do we actually do with the money that comes in right now and in the future? And with a degree in finance and with a corporate background, I still didn't know what to do with the money when I first got my first payment from my first client. And I thought, if I don't know how to do this, I don't know how anyone else is expected to know how to do this. So that's kind of how I fell into this. And I eventually transitioned from being a health coach to doing this, as this really feels like my soul work and my mission.
I absolutely love hearing that. So I talked a little bit about Profit First in the introduction that you didn't hear. So I mentioned it, but what I love is that you take what's in the book, really geared more toward brick and mortar businesses, and break it down for online entrepreneurs, which is good because everyone that's listening is likely an online entrepreneur. So I highly recommend the book Profit First, but tell us, what is the main difference you see between brick and mortar and online businesses as far as what you'll be sharing with us today?
Profit First was written really, it's an amazing book. And Mike Michalowicz is a good friend of mine, and his content is a complete game changer for anyone that is looking to get control over cash flow. But when I was reading the book, was actually looking for a better system for a group of health coaches that I was guiding through a budgeting course. And I wanted to be able to give them the best system for business. And when I read the book, I thought, this is so amazing, this concept, but it wasn't really fitting for someone either just starting out or that was a virtual business that didn't have 3 to 5 years of financial statements to look at. So I knew right away that I was going to apply the concepts, but in terms of actually using the book itself, we were going to have to do things differently. So with an online business, we have the ability to start a business without a lot of overhead. So we can really get going without very little expenses. And when you read Profit First, I've noticed a lot of online entrepreneurs feel a little bit confused because they see the conversation around using financial statements and looking at past expenses when they're just not at that point in their business. It just doesn't make sense. So I like to apply it in a way that makes sense to an online entrepreneur or someone just starting out.
Got it. Okay, so let's begin with you giving us an overview of Profit First. What is it? How will it help my listeners run their businesses with less stress, more clarity, and really just control over their cash flow?
Okay, so Profit First in a nutshell is essentially like paying yourself first. So, when you're in your personal budget, you've always heard that you want to pay yourself first, right?
Yes.
Like put it in another savings account. Well, Profit First is something similar. So in traditional accounting, the way that they look at profit is essentially everything that comes into your business and then subtract everything that you have to pay for, all of your expenses. Whatever's left over is profit. But as you know, what you focus on grows. So if you actually think about profit being something that you take out first, So all of the money comes in, then you intentionally take a portion of that money and put it into a savings account. That is now your profit. And then whatever's left over is what you have to run the business. So Profit First essentially allows you to figure out a method to be able to put aside money for profit, have enough money to pay yourself regularly, which, as we know, that can be a problem with online cash or online businesses, to actually feel like you can actually pay yourself, and then have enough money for taxes and still have money for your business expenses. So it's really just an organizational system for your cash instead of it all just coming into your bank account and then hoping for the best when you take money out.
Okay, so talk to me about differences between the bookkeeper and accounting and cash flow system.
Okay, so as you know, most people when they think about money, they think, okay, well, I need a bookkeeper. And that's very true. You definitely need a bookkeeper. And they're amazing at being able to track everything that's happened so far. So all the expenses that you have come in, you want to make sure that you can record them accurately so that your accountant can take that information and make sure that you're paying exactly what you need to pay for tax. But there's another component that even in corporate, I would say is the main reason why we're struggling in terms of keeping afloat. 87% of small businesses fail due to cash flow problems. And it's because we don't focus on the actual position or job of looking at cash flow management. What are you going to do with the money that comes into your business? What are you going to do with the future money that comes into your business? And how are you going to make sure that you have enough for the things that you need to pay for now? So this is truly where I believe we find to be the biggest struggle, because we all think we're not good with money. But what it really is we just haven't figured out a system that allows us to organize our cash so that we can feel really good about it.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, because I want people to walk away from this interview and be able to easily implement something that will help in the success of building and growing their online business and being able to live a life they have designed for themselves and they love, you've agreed to walk us through a specific exercise. Now, this exercise will help my listeners to decide on a true monthly revenue goal that will result in enough money to pay the bills, the business expenses, and have enough left over for taxes while still being profitable. Profitable meaning cash in the bank. So that's what we're doing. We're going to decide on a true monthly revenue goal that will pay the bills as well as have enough left over to pay your taxes and have money in the bank. So as a side note, Amber has also created a spreadsheet template for you. So you can plug in your information and it will automatically calculate all that she's going to go over with us today so that you'll be ready to implement right away. You all know that when I create a podcast episode like this, I want you to take action. It's not enough just to listen and walk away and think, oh, well, that was nice. I want you to actually know your true monthly revenue goal. So that's why Amber created the calculator. You can get it at amyporterfield.com/232. So amyporterfield.com/232. Okay, Amber, I know you are all about the numbers and the practical application, which is fantastic. But what I also love is that you take this all to a new level that allows everyone to truly see why we are focusing on the numbers to begin with. Like the why is so important to you as well. So before we talk about how to actually use the calculator, and guys, we're going to get there for sure, I'd love to hear you tell us your thoughts about what goes into a revenue goal and why my listeners will want to dive into figuring this out.
Okay, I love this question because the practical action is so important, but it's also about really stepping into the identity of who that person is that would be making that money and not feeling guilty about the money coming in, but truly being empowered by the fact that your impact is directly related to your revenue. And revenue can be a wonderful, beautiful thing because it means that you are affecting and helping more and more people. And your effort is absolutely at a limit. You only have so much effort. But in terms of your impact, it's limitless. And so being able to see that in a way that can allow yourself to truly open yourself to that money coming in and showing that you're a responsible steward by having a system that makes sense. It allows you to take the emotion out of thinking about your business expenses and instead be very strategic and at the same time create space for that money to come in.
Amber, that is so true and so important. And I'm so glad you shared that. We need to declare our number and then show up as the kind of person that makes that money and knows why they want to make that money as well. I think clarity is power. And you said it so beautifully. So thank you so much for sharing that. I like the big picture before we get into the tactical stuff, because it's good to do, and it's good to get in there and use the calculator. But also we got to step back and say, wait a second, why does this number mean so much to us? And what are we going to do with it? So, okay. So we made that clear. So now that we have a better idea of what actually goes into this revenue goal, take us through the exercise. You broke this all down for me in a short video. So thanks for sending that over. So I know your instruction is going to be super clear and very doable for my listeners. So let's go ahead and dive in. And remember, guys, we're giving you this calculator, amyporterfield.com/232. You can get the calculator and you can do this exercise with us. Okay. So go ahead and explain to my listeners how to make this happen.
Okay, so I'm so excited to share this because this is the simplest thing you're ever going to do. You literally just need 4 pieces of information, and one of them you're just going to choose. So the first step is you want to think about how much you actually want to pay yourself each month. Now, this may mean all of your personal expenses. This may mean I just want to put an extra $1,000 towards the household expenses. Or maybe it's all your personal expenses plus those extra things that you're really wanting to also achieve that you know that if you had that revenue goal and that really clear picture, you could. So there's a process and you can list it all out on a piece of paper. It's really simple, just coming up with all of your personal expenses. So you have that number. So if you know for sure after taxes, after everything, you want to be able to pay yourself, let's say $2,500 a month. That's all you're going to put in to the first cell. So there's 4 steps. So step 1, it tells you exactly what to do. Enter the amount you want to pay yourself each month. Check. Okay, step 2, you want to enter in your monthly business expenses so that you can make this as easy or as complicated as you want. So if you just know, right now I want to be able to pay for lead pages and Acuity and have a virtual assistant. So maybe that comes up to $900 a month. So you would just put that into the cell right there. Then you need to enter in your tax percentage. Now, I put in this step in the instructions, put it from your accountant. If you don't know or you don't have an accountant, I suggest you put 20%. That's a really good starting point for people in US and Canada. If you're in Europe or Australia, you may want to check with your accountant to make sure that that number is appropriate. But that is a good starting point just to get a picture, because this will allow you to always put 20% of the money that comes in straight into a fund to be able to pay your taxes at the end of the year. And then the 4th step is your profit percentage, how much profit you would like to have. Now, this I recommend if you're just starting out, try 5%. If you feel that the revenue goal that comes up is a little bit too high, let's say, or you don't feel comfortable with that goal, you can bring your profit percentage down to as low as 1% and then ease it up over time. But I recommend to push yourself just a little bit out of your comfort zone and keep it at 5%. So when you do this, it immediately automatically calculates your average revenue goal that you need to be able to hit your goals. So if you see that, like for example, I have all of this in here. And when I put it into the calculator, if I want to pay myself $2,500 a month and I want to have business expenses of $900 and I want to put 20% aside for taxes and I still want to be profitable at 5%, then I need to make $4,533 a month to be able to do that. And what you can do then is you can check it. So if you put that number into this cell at the bottom, which says enter in the money you've received here. So if I put in 4533.33, I will then get exactly $226 for profit, $2,500 for owner's pay, $900 for taxes, and $900 for business expenses. And it gives you the exact percentages that you would need to use to separate out your money. So if you think about it, if you just think of all your money coming in to one place, right, your bank account, and you have it all in a pile, you've taken it out of the bank account and you have it a pile on your desk. And then you want to be able to separate it out into those four main areas. So you would take the 5% and you put it in an envelope for profit. You would take the 55% and you'd put it in your owner's pay. This is what you're going to pay yourself. 20% would go into taxes, and then the rest of the money is available for business expenses. And this will ensure that you are paying yourself appropriately, that you have enough money for taxes, and you're still setting yourself up to have money in the bank and accumulating money in the bank as you grow your business.
Okay, so this is fantastic because a lot of my students will tell me, I don't know if I should pay for this or if it's worth it, or I don't know where I should be spending my money. And I'll say, okay, well, what is your budget? And they'll say, I have no idea. And so this actually creates a very natural budget when you know how much you can spend to put back in the business after you've paid yourself in taxes and all that good stuff. I also will say that I do something very similar where when I pay myself, I also know exactly how much goes into a special bank account to pay my estimated taxes. So I don't even touch that money. I look at it like it was never mine in the first place, so it will never be spent by me. And so I take it, put it in that account. When I pay my estimated taxes every few months, I'm good to go. Now, what that did for me is it took away so much worry. Am I going to have enough money to pay my taxes? Because in my first few years without using Profit First in this system that you're outlining, I had no idea what I'd have to pay in taxes. But with the new system, I never worried. Like at tax season, I was cool as a cucumber, but it took a while for me to get there. So I love that you're breaking it out like this. Now, a lot of people think that part of growing a business is taking what's left over and just reinvesting it back in the business, even before they pay themselves. So talk about this mindset and what Profit First would say about this.
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to say I'm so excited to hear that you do that, because by putting money aside as if it never were yours, it feels so amazing, because when you do actually pay your taxes, oh, no problem. You know, I have a $20,000 bill and you have $25,000 sitting there. It's like, I just got a $5,000 bonus because you're able to refund yourself instead of looking at this bill and going, I have $5,000 in my account. How am I going to do this? So it really does take away that stress. If people take one thing away from this conversation, and it's just start putting aside 20% of anything that comes in and putting it in a separate account for tax, that will in itself make such a difference in terms of how you feel about the money at the end of the year.
Totally agree.
Okay, so in terms of the mindset of profit, so Mike Michalowicz, the author of Profit First, he talks a lot about this law called Parkinson's Law. And essentially, anything that we talk about, resource, time, money, will expand in the space that it's allowed. So if we don't put anything aside for tax, and if we don't put anything aside for profit, we basically will find we are really good and efficient at finding purposes and things that we want to spend our money on. So if we have $100 in our pocket, we will find $100 of expenses to spend. And if we have $1,000 in our pocket, we will find something that's $1,000 to spend. This is just human nature. This is our innate ability to just use the resources that we see in front of us. But with Profit First, it protects yourself, right? So you can put aside the money for tax. You can put aside the money for profit. So then you truly are doing the same behavior. You're looking at the money that's left over, but you're protecting yourself because you're not spending the money that's really for profit and really for tax. So the mindset behind Profit First is every quarter you take what's accumulated in your profit account and you basically distribute half of it back to you as a bonus. And the idea behind this is business owners that are really, hustling and getting things together, it can sometimes feel really draining at times. It's amazing to own your own business, but there are times when you just go, oh my gosh. So by getting this quarterly bonus and saying, oh, I do not work for my business. My business works for me. By getting that bonus, by getting that profit distribution, it's not every month, so it doesn't become part of your salary, and it's not once a year, so you forget about it, but it's specifically every quarter so that you can really enjoy and celebrate the fact that, yes, I've built this experience for me to be able to give myself this profit distribution. And it's fun. It's so much fun. We have profit parties every quarter.
I love that. That's really cool. Okay, so to wrap this up, if you've read or plan to read the book, the author of Profit First suggests using several different bank accounts to track the Profit First system of cash flow. But you've created a system with the author's blessing that is much easier for online entrepreneurs to implement and track. So tell us about this.
So this is really exciting because as online business owners, we don't really want to have to be tied to specific banks and having, different local banks. And if you're in Europe or Australia, it can be even harder because banks are not always free. We're pretty fortunate in the US to have the ability of having multiple bank accounts for little to no fee. But in other parts of the world, it is quite expensive to have multiple bank accounts. And Profit First is an envelope system. An envelope system is what we've been talking about this whole time, which is essentially just organizing your cash. So there's a software that I've used for many years, and I used it personally, and it's called YNAB, You Need a Budget. And this is an envelope system that's all online and in the cloud. So instead of just having 4 bank accounts where I have profit, owner's pay, taxes, and business expenses, I use this system to be able to take the business expenses portion and break it down as granular as you want it to be. So you can see from the business expense portion exactly how much money you have to cover different monthly expenses. So for example, if I want to take lead pages and I want to get the extra bonus by paying the full annual premium and saving some money, I can still make it a monthly bill by having it in YNAB and saying every month I'm going to put aside $45 for lead pages, even though I'm not paying for it right then. And do this for all of your different business expenses. So then you are truly looking at your expenses regardless of when it goes out of your account. This is especially helpful for someone just starting out and when you really are counting every penny. What this does is it brings back the true value of a dollar. Because you can imagine, like if you have, sometimes when you don't have any cash and you're out and about and they don't have the ability to take a credit card and all you had was your Apple Pay, let's say. And then you find that $10 bill that's stuck in the back of your purse. Yes. And you're like, oh, I can actually have this ice cold water when it's 90 degrees out and you are stuck without any money. That $10 is so valuable because it's allowing you to get that ice cold water. When we have, $100 or $1,000 or $2,000 in our account and we have access to that, $10 doesn't really feel like it's a big deal, right? But when we just have that $10 in our hand, it is so valuable. So depending on your situation, it actually doesn't really matter. In terms of looking at your money, you want to be able to break it down and organize it in a way that you can say, okay, I have 4 months of business expenses fully covered, and you can do this with that software.
Okay, so you're saying YNAB, YNAB. What does that stand for?
You need a budget.
You need a budget. Okay.
Yeah, and it's definitely named that way because people think, when they think of money, they think of budgets. But a budget this is something that I talk about a lot with Mint. A lot of people say, oh, I have Mint. I don't need YNAB. But Mint is a lot like a bookkeeping software for your personal stuff. So if you look at Mint, then you're really just looking at what's already happened. But YNAB is actually an envelope system, or what they call, if you want to get really nerdy about it, is $0 budget. And that means that you actually take whatever you currently have available to you, the cash that you have right now, and give it intention and purpose. So every dollar has a job, whether you have $10,000 in the bank, or if you have $100 in the bank, it requires you to give every dollar a job. So this is really important because if you don't have enough money coming in to cover all of your set expenses that you have in your quote budget, YNAB will let you know, hey, you only have this much, so you're going to need to allocate less than you currently wanted to spend in that area so that you can still be true to the amount of cash you actually have in your bank account. And this is where the game changer is, because if you don't spend all the money in one area, you can repurpose it. You can say, oh, I didn't go out as much this month, and I really want to put that extra money towards my trip to France because I so want to go to France. And so then you can really start to be more intentional about where you're spending your money, and you can also feel the true freedom of paying for something that you set aside money for because you know you're still on track with all of your other goals. So instead of it being a restricted thing, which is what a lot of people think of when they hear the B word, they can actually feel really good about the fact that, yes, I have $200 that I set aside specifically for this tasting menu that I wanted to go do, and I'm going to feel really good about doing it, and I'm not going to feel any guilt about spending the $200 because I've put it aside and I specifically have made that intention that that's what that money's for.
So that feels really good when you do that with intention. Is YNAB an online application?
It is. It's been around for quite a while. And it's all on the cloud. So anyone can access it. And they have currencies all over the world. So you can set up your budget regardless. And you can have multiple budgets in there. So my clients will put a business budget and they'll also put a personal budget. And those are all interconnected because your business, I can almost guarantee your business is profitable, but it's the personal spending that, from what I've seen, my experience, that sabotages business profitability. And so by getting really clear what truly you need in your personal budget, and then also maintaining clarity and control about where that money's going, immediately skyrockets your business accounts because it allows you to be really clear about where you're putting that money. And also, if you're hitting your revenue goal or exceeding your revenue goal, being able to start to see paycheck stashes accumulate because you have an organizational system that shows, okay, I know exactly where this money's going. And this is something that I wish that every business owner, health coach, life coach that was just starting out had at their fingertips, because this gives you the ability to be profitable from the beginning. I'm currently in a mastermind, and we're talking about people that are scaling to 7 figures and still having cash flow problems. And I say this because regardless of how much money you're making in your business, if you don't have a really clear picture of exactly where it's going, it'll be a problem regardless of how much money you make in your business. I know people that are making 5K months that are more profitable than someone making 40K months. So it's not the actual revenue that's coming in, but it's actually what you're doing with the money and being really clear about and discretionary about the money that you are spending and making sure that there's a true return when you are investing in your business.
So good. You hear people talk about how it takes a lot of money to acquire a customer. So why not spend your time really building up the relationships with the customers you have, because then you're not constantly trying to get new customers all the time. Well, when I think about your finances, if you would just take care of the finances that you have, you don't have to work so hard to always be bringing in more and more revenue. I mean, sure, you definitely can, but it's nice when you don't have to. It's a whole different ballgame. So take care of the money that's already coming in for you. And this system that Amber's outlining here is exactly what will help you do just that. So Amber, I'm so glad that I had you on here today. What you shared could definitely change people's businesses and ultimately their lives. So if you're listening, I'm serious. Please take Amber up on what she's offered here. Really learn this system. I'm going to link to a lot of the resources in the show notes. So amyporterfield.com/232, including the calculator. So you heard Amber talk about it, but I want you to put it into action. So you're going to get access to that calculator. So Amber, tell my listeners where they can learn more about you.
Well, they can go to www.amberduggar.com. And I also have a community on Facebook called Sweet Life Purposeful Money, where we get more granular on building that revenue goal and can have, spreadsheets that let you build that up in terms of all your personal expenses, all of your business expenses. And it gives you a really clear picture of how to use this calculator.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, Amber, for being on the show.
Thanks so much, Amy. It was such a pleasure.
So there you have it. I'm telling you, Profit First can really change your business. And I think what's more important than tracking the money and the expenses and YNAB, the system that you can use to go along with the Profit First philosophies, beyond all of that, I think the most important thing to remember is that you should have peace of mind in your business. You shouldn't be worried about when the next dollar is going to come in because you can't pay your expenses inside your business, or worse yet, you can't pay your personal bills. I remember when I was very disorganized in the early days of my business, not knowing if I would have enough money coming in. And so that made me feel desperate. And I started to chase client after client after client. And people can feel that desperation. They know when you are hustling for the money. And I don't want you to be that type of entrepreneur. There's no joy in that whatsoever. So I wanted to do this episode because I want you to know what your revenue goals are. And I want you to know your why behind it. And I want you to show up as the person that's going to make that type of money, whatever that number is for you. How do you need to show up? What time would you wake up in the morning? How would you address your clients? How would you address your content creation and your launching, knowing that you have a certain number in mind and you are going to hit it every month over and over again? That takes a specific type of person. And I want you to be the person that shows up to make the kind of money that you want to make. So sorry to get so dramatic about this at the end, but it's important that you look at it that way because there's a bigger, more important message here than just type your numbers into the calculator and see what happens. So I hope you walk away with the bigger message. That is definitely something that I think is most important about this episode. Okay, switching gears, let's talk about what I'm doing next week. So I'm often asked about the ins and outs of podcasting. I get asked, Amy, how do you start a podcast? How do you promote a podcast? How do you get more downloads? What equipment do you use? I mean, everything from A to Z, I get podcasting questions. So I thought, I need an episode that walks you through it all. I'm talking topics and guests and recording and editing and promoting and all the good stuff. So next week's episode is all about getting you started with a podcast. And if you have a podcast, hopefully helping you fine tune or tweak a few areas to make it even better. So that's next week. And one final reminder, this episode is sponsored by Gravy. If you have a subscription model business or you do payment plans and you have failed payments like we all do, hire Gravy. It's like collections with compassion. They get the system set up and running. They take care of it all. I never worry about failed payments at all. And that's saying a lot coming from a natural worrier. So take out that part of the stress in your business. Contact Gravy, amyporterfield.com/gravy for all the details. Okay, guys, can't wait to see you here same time, same place next week. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast at www.amyporterfield.com.